back to the Dossier Project. If you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We are here to discuss another of our January challenges. So we had talked about the characteristic of humility or being humble, and we wanted to look at that a little bit more. So I'm wondering if anyone would like to comment. What do you think about humility in general?
Basically, the recognition that we aren't what other people think of us. And really, it's the ability to separate our image and what we do. Like, to clarify a little bit more, like the opposite of humility. Sometimes it's more easier to understand the opposite. So it's like egotistical, or maybe full of self. Like you are trying to pump up your image of you to be better than what is actually um, measurable or achievable or concrete. It's just based on the thought, really, or talking or something abstract like that, versus being proud of something is you actually doing something. To me, that's very much related to there's something that you achieved, and that's to be proud, and that's good. Versus, and humility is not also, it's not diminishing your achievements either. So it's basically accepting and understanding um, what you've done, and also recognizing too that it's not all about you. It's because for every achievement, there's really almost like no self-made person. We all have used, help and learn from other people who have come before us, and together we don't exist in a vacuum. So humility is kind of the understanding of that.
I love that because I had what as you were talking, and I agree with everything that you said actually, and it created an image in my mind of like balance. Is like, but humility has a lot to do with like an equilibrium, because I think we a lot of times we confuse ourselves. Like humility is like lowering ourselves, or like being I don't know if this is a word in English, forgive me if I'm wrong, but like serve, like serving someone, but in a bad way. In Spanish, we have servilismo, which means like, you are serving someone, but out of you feeling less than the other person. And then we have the other spectrum, which is arrogance, right? It's like you feel like you're up here and you're above everybody else, and, you're not equal in a way. And humility, I feel like it's neither of those. It's just like this characteristic that emerges when you know yourself and you know your worth and you know what you're here for in a way in the world. And then it's like this beautiful, like, boom, it's like, no, I'm here. This is me. And I think we said in our Instagram post is no more and no less. Yes, because nobody is more than anybody, in human realm. And we can do different things. Sure, it's like you can, and I talk to my kids all the time. It's like, well, you can be good at tennis, right? And you can play better at tennis that, so and so maybe. That does not equal you being better, you being better. Like that's never a possibility. So yes, I feel like this humility is this characteristic of just understanding really well, and it's a learning process, I feel, understanding really well who you are, where you come from, and it does require to acknowledge all the people that came before you, that so that any of us could be here. We actually have tons and tons of people that dedicated, their lives, their knowledge for us to be better. And sometimes not even consciously, it's like we're using our phone. Someone dedicated all that time so that we could have a more comfortable life. So anyway, that's just how I pictured humility right now.
Springboard a little bit off of what you said about it's a learning process to get to a place of true humility, and because I like to think of examples in these cases of okay, like who do I know who in my life has ever demonstrated humility, and like okay, what is it that I see in them that I'm like humble, that's humility. And I think of this professor that I had who was it was an interesting situation. He was actually above the age, like he was kind of like forced into retirement. Like the university wouldn't pay him anymore, but he kept coming because he kept getting grants because he was just that good. So he was able to continue being a professor, anyways, even though he was like not being paid. And that was, first of all, I was like, that's crappy that there's that rule. I don't think that rule exists anymore, but uh, he's just somebody who is extremely accomplished, is what I'm trying to say. He was the author on the textbooks that everybody in North America used, like, not the author, but one of the authors. Like, this was a really accomplished person. And I remember going to the weekly presentations. We would have guests come to the university and speak about their research. And as a student, I would attend, with my lab mates, and of course, our professors attended as well. And he would always like attend and then ask these like super simplistic questions that I was like, what is going on? Is he being patronizing? And absolutely not. He was genuinely curious. Like, he was asking these like very questions that like I understood what he was asking, which didn't match to me. Like, but you're an expert. Why are you asking these very, very simple questions? And after watching him do this for a while, it and getting to know him like a little bit, a little distantly, but getting to know him, I was like, he's genuinely asking. He does not assume. He doesn't have the arrogance of assuming he knows because he has so much knowledge in the field. He's clarifying because he's trying to take what this person is describing in their research and slot it into his sort of whole vast library of knowledge. And he's not taking things for granted, which is actually what I think a true expert is able to do, is they know their own templates well, and then they know what they're hearing, and then they're trying to make sure that their template is appropriate and applies here or doesn't, or if it doesn't apply, why not? And they're trying to figure it out, and that comes back down to basics. But what I really remember about him is thinking like he he always sort of sat by himself and just asked these questions, and I was like, wow, there's no arrogance, there's no showmanship, to the questions. He wasn't like first to raise his hand, but he wasn't last, like all these things, and thinking, wow, but there's still a confidence. And that's the difference between false humility, which is the servitude, and true humility. Is that I think there's a confidence, but it's not a showy confidence. It's just somebody who they live their lives and they just do their thing because they're not doing it for or with respect to other. They're doing it for themselves, whatever it is they're doing. So I will just add that I think, looking at this example, that I think true humility has like a very deep, true confidence to it, which is the knowing yourself and knowing the truth of what you do know and what you are able to do and what you don't know and what you aren't able to do. And yeah, that comes through as a confidence.
It's beautiful because again, when you are doing something, like it can look from the outside, the same. Like, how do you know if someone is I talk about serving because I think in my culture there's a lot of that. Like, we, like, mothers serve, and if you go to any beach in Mexico, like anywhere really, but I talked about the beach because that's like a very touristic place, and usually the experience of the people is like, oh my goodness, like people are really serving you, like they give themselves to their job. And I have received some comments from people about, like, well, that's the servitude, or like, it comes from a different place. And I wonder, is like, well, it could, I guess, but like our culture is so like that we really try to serve the other because we see the other in us and us in the other. Like, there's this very, we used to have something, so ilakech, I think it's Mayan, which is you are in me and I am in you. And I do feel like that is in our culture. It's really embedded in there. But it could look the same, right? Like, how do you know when you're doing an act of service? How do you know where it's coming from? It could come from being like, oh, I feel lower than this person and I need to, serve them. Or you could recognize, the amounts that this person has given you, and you do the service because the service because you feel honored, and you feel, there's a humility there, a connection, and a realization that because of this person, you are able to be this person yourself. So yeah, it could look the same, but I guess it's a very internal experience too. It's very inner honesty in a way of how do you feel.
What you said just makes me think, it's kind of like two things that come up for me. I'm thinking about there's like a genuine openness and curiosity to learn, to be a student of, versus a lot, I think in today's culture too, we kind of elevate people who are experts and the people who know the most. And we kind of think of them as whatever, if they're doctors or lawyers or professors, or doesn't matter what field, like kind of the person who knows the most then is somehow a higher status. But I think that there's the distinction between what they know in their area, which we can celebrate, versus elevating them as a person, like somehow they're better than them, which I don't think, is like no human being, person is better than another. It doesn't matter just because you have a lot of achievements, you recognize the difference between the achievements versus the person, I think. So and also it comes up for me too. I think what you were talking about, Angie, is that like a lot of what we call like servant leadership, it's not like the leader is not subservient to other people. It's just being of service and being helping, and how that is the sign of, I think, recognizing now it's not like a dictatorship or a hierarchical or military style, where because of my rank and expertise or age or whatever experience, I'm better than you. And if you're lower than me, you have to do as I say, commanding, and so forth, versus no, like the true servant leadership understands how raising others, and mentoring them and having been in their shoes and helping them, nurture them, whether you're a parent or a leader or working in business together. I think that's, a different nuance, I think, that we can kind of talk about.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on humility. And I look forward to coming back because I would like to hear how humility specifically relates to your experiences in DOS. So we'll have that conversation next and share. And again, a reminder, if you haven't already, please like, comment on this video if you have thoughts, subscribe to our channel. And until next time, bye for now.